Good morning and welcome to day 63 of Bible in a Year as we go through the Holy Bible in 365 days from Genesis to Revelations. We're following together the New International Version. We're also following together the Adventure Timeline created by Jeff Cavins. And the period we're in right now is Desert Wanderings. My name is Pastor Jay Lutz, and today we're going to be going through Numbers chapter 14, Deuteronomy chapter 12, and Psalm number 95. Now, Numbers 14 starts out with, remember, this is after the report of the 12 spies that go into the land of Canaan. What will they do when they spied on Canaan? 10 were bad and 2 were good. So we see the 12 spies. The people then hear the report, mainly being bad since the 10 gave a poor report and only 2 gave good report. The people then rebelled against God because of the report, and then we see Moses again trying to go to bat before God in order so that God doesn't wipe out all the people for their disobedience. Then we see chapter 12 of Deuteronomy. God calls the people of Israel to follow the laws concerning only one place of worship and one God, or things may not go well in the land as a result. And then lastly, Psalm 95. Psalm 95, like 94 yesterday, is another royal psalm. And the central message of it being, the Lord is a great king. And so this is a psalm of praise before God. Well, let's begin. Numbers chapter 14. That night all the people of the community raised their voices and wept aloud. All the Israelites grumbled against Moses and Aaron, and the whole assembly said to them, "If only we had died in Egypt, or in this desert. Why is the Lord bringing us to the land only to let us fall by the sword? Our wives and children will be taken as plunder. Wouldn't it be better for us to go back to Egypt?" And they said to each other, "We should choose a leader and go back to Egypt." Then Moses and Aaron fell face down in front of the whole Israelite assembly gathering there. Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Zephaniah, who were among those who explored the land, tore their clothes and said to the entire Israelite assembly, "The land we passed through and explored is exceedingly good. If the Lord is pleased with us, he will lead us into the land, a land flowing with milk and honey, and will give it to us. Only do not rebel against the Lord, and do not be afraid of the people of the land, because we will swallow them up. Their protection is gone, but the Lord is with us. Do not be afraid of them." But the whole assembly talked about stoning them. Then the glory of the Lord appeared at the tent of meeting to all the Israelites. The Lord said to Moses, "How long will these people treat me with contempt? How long will they refuse to believe in me, in spite of all the miraculous signs I have performed among them? I will strike them down with a plague and destroy them, but I will make you into a nation greater and stronger than they." Moses said to the Lord, "Then the Egyptians will hear about it. By your power you brought these people up from among them, and they will tell the inhabitants of this land about it. They have already heard that you, O Lord, are with these people, and that you, O Lord, have been seen face to face, that your clouds stay over them, and that you go before them in a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. If you put these people to death all at one time, the nations who have heard this report about you will say, 'The Lord was not able to bring these people in the land he promised them on oath, so he slaughtered them in the desert.' Now may the Lord's strength be displayed just as you have declared. The Lord is slow to anger and abounding in love, and forgiving sins and rebellion. Yet he does not leave the guilty unpunished. He punishes the children for the sins of the fathers to the third and fourth generation. In accordance with your great love, you forgive sins of these people, just as you have pardoned them from the time they left Egypt until now." The Lord replied, "I have forgiven them as you asked. Nevertheless, as surely as I live and as surely as the glory of the Lord fills the whole earth, not one of the men who saw my glory and the miraculous signs I performed in Egypt and in the desert, who disobeyed me and tested me 10 times, not one of them will ever see the land I promised on oath to their forefathers. No one who has treated me with contempt will ever see it. But because my servant Caleb has a different spirit and followed me wholeheartedly, I will bring him into the land he went to, and his descendants will inherit it. Since the Amalekites and the Canaanites are living in the valleys, turn back tomorrow and set out towards the desert along the route to the Red Sea." The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, How long will this wicked community grumble against me? I have heard the complaints of these grumbling Israelites. So tell them, as surely as I live, declares the Lord, I will do to you the very thing I heard you say. In the desert your bodies will fall, every one of you, 20 years old or more, who is counted in the census and who has grumbled against me. Not one of you will enter the land I swore with uplifting hands to make your home, except Caleb, son of Zephaniah, and Joshua, son of Nun. And for your children that you said would be taken as plunder, I will bring them in to enjoy the land you have rejected. But you, your bodies will fall in this desert. Your children will be shepherds here for 40 years, suffering for your unfaithfulness, until the last of your body lies in the desert. For 40 years, 1 year for each of the 40 days, you explored the land. You will suffer for your sins, and know that it is like to have me against you. I, the Lord, have spoken, and I will surely do these things to this whole wicked community, which is banded together against me. They will meet their end in this desert. Here they will die. So the men Moses had sent to explore the land, who returned and made the whole community grumble against him by spreading a bad report about it. These men responsible for spreading the bad report about the land were struck down and died of a plague before the Lord. Of the men who went to explore the land, only Joshua son of Nun and Caleb son of Zephaniah survived. When Moses reported this to all the Israelites, they mourned bitterly. Early the next morning they went up towards the hill country. We have sinned, they said. We will go up to the land the Lord had promised. But Moses said, Why are you disobeying the Lord's command? This will not succeed. Do not go up, because the Lord is not with you. You will be defeated by your enemies, for the Amalekites and the Canaanites will face you there. Because you have turned away from the Lord, he will not be with you, and you will fall by the sword. Nevertheless, in the presumption they went up towards the hill country, though neither Moses nor the ark of the Lord's covenant moved from the camp. Then the Amalekites and the Canaanites who lived in that hill country came down and attacked them, and beat them down all the way to Hormah. Here ends our first reading. Our second reading comes from Deuteronomy, chapter 12. These are the decrees and laws you must be careful to follow in the land that the Lord your God, your Father, has given you to possess, as long as you live in the land. Destroy completely all the places on the high mountains, and on the hills and under every spreading tree where the nations you are disposing worship their gods. Break down their altars, smash their sacred stones, and burn their Asherah poles in the fire. Cut down the idols of their gods, and wipe out their names from those places. You must not worship the Lord your God in their way, but you are to seek the place the Lord your God will choose from amongst all your tribes, to put his name there for his dwelling. To that place you must go. There bring your burnt offerings and sacrifices, your tithes and special gifts, what you have vowed to give, and your freewill offerings, and the firstborn of your herds and flock. There in the presence of the Lord your God, you and your family shall eat and rejoice in everything you have put your hand to, because the Lord your God has blessed you. You are not to do as we do here today, everyone as he sees fit, since you have not yet reached the resting place and the inheritance the Lord your God has given you. But you will cross the Jordan and settle in the land your Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance, and he will give you rest from all your enemies around you, so that you will live in safety. Then to the place the Lord your God will choose as a dwelling for his name. There you are to bring everything I command you, your burnt offerings and sacrifices, your tithes and special gifts, and all the choice possessions you have vowed to the Lord. And there rejoice before the Lord your God, you, your sons and daughters, your men servants and maidservants, and the Levites from your towns, who have no allotment or inheritance of their own. Be careful not to sacrifice your burnt offerings anywhere you please. Offer them only to the place the Lord will choose in one of your tribes, and there observe everything I command you. Nevertheless, you may slaughter your animals in any of your towns, and eat as much of the meat as you want, as if it were a gazelle or deer, according to the blessing the Lord your God gives you. Both the ceremonially unclean and the clean may eat it. But you must not eat the blood, pour it out on the ground like water. You must not eat in your own towns the tithe of your grain and new wine and oil, or the firstborn of your herds and flocks, or whatever you have vowed to give, or your freewill offering or special gifts. Instead, you are to eat them in the presence of the Lord your God, at the place the Lord your God will choose. You, your sons and daughters, your men servants and maidservants, and the Levites from your towns. And you are to rejoice before the Lord your God in everything you put your hand to. Be careful not to neglect the Levites, as long as you live in your land. When the Lord your God has enlarged your territory as promised, you crave meat and say, I would like some meat, then you may eat as much of it as you want. If the place where the Lord your God chooses to put his name is too far away from you, you may slaughter animals from the herd and flocks the Lord has given you, and I have commanded you, and in your own towns you may eat as much of them as you want. Eat them as you would gazelle or deer. Both the ceremonially unclean and the clean may eat. But be sure you do not eat the blood, because the blood is the life, and you must not eat the life with the meat. You must not eat the blood poured out on the ground like water. Do not eat it, so that it may go well with you and your children after you, because you will be doing what is right in the eyes of the Lord. But take your consecrated things and whatever you have vowed to give, and go to the place the Lord will choose. Present your burnt offerings on the altar of the Lord your God, both the meat and the blood. The blood of your sacrifice must be poured beside the altar of the Lord your God, but you may eat the meat. Be careful to obey all these regulations I am giving you, so that it may always go well with you and your children after you, because you will be doing what is good and right in the eyes of the Lord your God. The Lord your God will cut off before you nations you are about to invade and dispose. But when you have driven them out and settled in their land, and after they have been destroyed before you, be careful not to be ensnared by inquiring about their gods, saying, How do these nations serve their gods? We will do the same. You must not worship the Lord your God in their way, because in worshiping their gods, they do all kinds of detestable things the Lord hates. They even burn their sons and daughters in the fire as sacrifice to their gods. See that you do all I command you. Do not add to it or take away from it. There ends our second reading. Our last reading is Psalm 95. Come, let us sing for joy to the Lord. Let us shout aloud to the rock of our salvation. Let us come before him with thanksgiving and extol him with music and with song. For the Lord is the great God, the great King above all gods. In his hands are the depths of the earth, and the mountain peaks belong to him. The sea is his, for he made it, and his hand forms the dry land. Come, let us bow down and worship. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker. For he is our God, and we are the people of his pasture, the flock under his care. Today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts, as you did in Meribah, as you did that day at Massah in the desert, where your fathers tested and tried me, though they had seen what I did. For 40 days I was angry with that generation. I said, They are a people whose heart go astray, and they have not known my ways. So I declare an oath in my anger, they shall never enter my rest. Here ends the end of the psalm. So we see that for those who do not walk in God's ways, he does not give that Sabbath, the rest. So we may find that when we sleep and we do not follow in the ways of God, our sleep may be troubled. But for those who obey God, who worship him, who kneel before the Lord our Maker, will find rest, like it says, like his people and flock under his care. May we ever see God as our great King and Lord, not only the protector of us in our time awake, but also in our time of sleep. Secondly, we read about God explains to the people in Deuteronomy that it is well that they would worship God and God alone, that they would not take from their neighbors or follow or worship the way that their neighbors had worshipped, but that they might worship in the way that God has put before them, that they might dwell in this land of the Lord in peace and in harmony with both God and with their neighbors. And so God gives them this explanation of how to worship him. And then lastly, we see the Numbers, the people rebel against. After hearing the report of the 12 spies, they rebel against God, saying that he has brought them out in the desert to kill them. And he says very clearly that he really wants to kill them and wipe them out because of their disobedience and because they have been hard-hearted and they have not treated him well. And he has forgiven them of their sins, but then he says, but the consequence is that you're not going to be able to enter the promised land because of it. You will be left out of the promised land, and your children are allowed to enter, as is Caleb and Joshua. And so so they disobey him, and they try to go and fight the Canaanites and the Amalekites, and it says they are attacked and beat down all the way to Hormah. So this disobedience doesn't pay. Trying to fight against God's word and against God himself, it's a losing battle from day one. So we should learn from this that we are not to rebel against the things of God, but that we might embrace the laws and commandments of God, and that we might dwell well in the ways of the Lord, and he will dwell with us and bring us into good pastures. My prayer today is that you would cling to the Lord with all your strength, that you would not lean upon your own understandings, but lean upon the understandings of God, so that things may go well. May you trust in him, for he trusts in you, and he wants the best for you. And so my prayer today is that you would find that dwelling place, that place of peace in both waking and in sleeping, which is with God. Have a blessed day.